Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 21st Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the town of Trumbull. So, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Still have to get used to this. It's only the second meeting where we're actually using this podium rather than sitting down there. It's a little different scope. So, roll call. Ms. Delvecchio is here, Mr. Silber is here, Mr. Deacon is here, Mr. Cousins is here, and I'm here. Is that good, Linda? Okay. So, while we have some folks still here, maybe people that are tuning in, I would like to take a point of order, and we're going to go off subject for a second. And I would like us to do it at the beginning rather than at the end. And we need to congratulate our town planner over there. Rob, raise your hand. For those that don't know, Rob Labrandy is the 2024 World Heavyweight Power Breaking Champion in the world. You know, when you see all those guys breaking boards? He's the number one guy in the world. He's the world champion. Right there. Nice guy. Yeah. No. No, be no canceling there. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may actually interject as well.
Okay.
Coming up on, I believe it's September 8th, is the CT United Ride, which you have been the chairman of for over 20 years.
Right.
And this ride is a nonprofit benefit for first responders, and I think
Town of Trumbull is very supportive of it.
Excellent.
Very, very supportive of it. And there's thousands of people out. It's coming on September, so thank you for that. And look forward to seeing everybody in Trumbull out. And Trumbull's been Rob helps with that too. But now that we went off subject, we look forward to seeing all that. We have some changes to tonight's agenda, right? Number one, the text amendment, I believe, is deferred, right? So we don't have to make any motions. They've done it themselves and withdrawn it.
correct. So they've asked that the hearing commence in September, Mr. Chairman, and that is for the Village Residence District Regulation Text Amendment.
Right, so they withdrew it, so we don't have to make a motion.
Correct.
Okay. So we are on now number 2. Zone change for 6567 Main Street. Applicant Trumbull Superstop Realty LLC is requesting a zone change to the property located at 6567 Main Street from Residence A to BC Long Hill Green and Town Hall Node pursuant to Article 2, Section 3.2 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations, file 2413. I'm going to read number 3 at the same time so we can talk about it all, but as you all know, when it comes to the end, we have to vote on them separately, but they're conjoined, so we'll talk about them all together. Number 3 is 6567 Main Street. In order to correct a zoning violation, applicant Trumbull Superstop Realty is requesting a special permit, site plan to construct 3 apartments on the second floor in a BC Long Hill Green and Town Hall Node pursuant to Article 2, Section 3.2, Article 15 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations, file 2414. So what I'd like is come on up to the podium, introduce yourself, name and address for the record, and then stop. And then we're going to have the planner report, and then we'll go back to you.
Point of order. As a neighbor and customer of the applicant, I'm going to recuse.
Okay. I don't know whether you know how it works, but I think you got to leave the room, too. Yeah. Yep.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, all present here today. First of all, is my volume okay? I'm not talking too loud? You're good? Okay. My name is Rob Bolito. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Willinger, and Busey, PC, which is located at 1000 Bridgeport Avenue, Suite 501 in Shelton, Connecticut. Before I begin, Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask if there was an alternate to replace Mr. Cousins, or if we can proceed.
Today, we have a quorum. We're good.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am pleased to be here representing my clients, Trumbull Superstop Realty LLC. Here with me today is Fabi Zabrowski, who is a member of the company that owns and is the applicant of this building. So my colleague Diane Lord, who's now retired, presented a pre-application to this commission back on April 24th. And at that time, the members of the commission present had positive feedback to offer regarding our plans.
Right. Before you go in, the way we kind of do it is after your introduction,
Oh, my apologies.
we make it, we're pretty succinct here. Might help you. So
Great.
we're going to go right to staff and get the staff report. And then after the staff report, we go back in and see if you need to add anything to what they've already going to tell us. It makes it much more expedited here. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead, Rob, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated by the applicant, this is there are two parts to this application, a zone change and a special permit site plan modification to correct a zoning violation. First, I'm just going to start with the zone change. The property is located in the A residential zone and abuts the PRCZ and the age-restricted elderly housing zone, and is 300 feet away from the Long Hill Green Town Hall Node Zone to the southeast. The property is surrounded by different types of housing other than single-family, with age-restricted and the apartments at Argonese Place and the condos on Governor's Ridge. I do not believe this is considered spot zoning, as similar uses are located within the area with overlay zones and the BC Long Hill Green Town Hall Node Zone. This will be a positive addition to our affordable housing stock and assist us in getting a moratorium in the future. And that's just based off of the zone change. For the site plan special permit, as stated before, this is a current zoning violation that's looking to be corrected. My department, building and fire, this was brought to our attention. We inspected the site. We saw 3 studio apartments and access to the rear. We spoke to the property owner, and that's when they hired an attorney, Diane Lord, to move forward with the process and start applying for the correct permits. And this is their first stop, really, to get that going. The apartments above the gas station, as stated, are existing. As the property is in the residential zone, they are not allowed to have multifamily housing in the zone, only single family. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property to BC Long Hill Green Zone, which allows for mixed use ability for a commercial on the first floor and apartments on the second. The current property contains a pre-existing non-conforming use as a gas station, which is not allowed in the residential zone. The property consists of 21 parking spaces, which is well above the requirement for both uses. With 3 studio apartments, little to no school children would be able to reside at this residence. No modifications will be made to the exterior of the building as well. It will remain as is currently. The types of uses allowed will be more than the residential zone, but if anything were to be changed, they would have to come back in front of this commission to apply for a potential change of use. If this application is approved, the applicant will need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to allow the staircase in the rear, as it does not meet current setback requirements. So I did have a discussion with Attorney Boletto about going in front of ZBA, and I did agree with him that he has to change the zone first for them to, if they do get an approval at this time, go to ZBA, because then he has to abide by different regulations. So he has to abide by the BC Long Hill Green Zone, which you can't do that right now. If this application is approved, I would ask this commission to put a condition that these 3 apartments be deemed affordable under the 830G state requirements and our zoning regulations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. I'll just add that over the years, whenever there has been a violation, not necessarily this one, we've asked that be brought up so that everyone is aware of what's going on and why. And we're grateful to the applicant that they're doing what they're doing and making sure everything is coordinated and what needs to be done in compliance with our regulations, right? So you were about to say, and I'll just say it, is that last time, one of the things that this commission has brought up in the past and makes sense here as well is when there are properties in town that are non-conforming, right? They have been non-conforming for decades. So the logic that I have brought forward and the commission seems to adopt is that if a property has been functioning for decades without issue, it can conform to what it really can and should be, right? So, in this particular case, when the pre-application came, we talked about it in that aspect, as well as it being centered around other businesses and in the Long Hill Green District area, and it did make sense for something like that to come forward. So you're here, and we're told that all the work was done with staff to make sure you're at this point. And you're unique because of the way Rob just described it, is that we require all commissions be completed before planning and zoning.
Right.
And in this particular case, you cannot because of this uniqueness where you need a zone change because you couldn't go forward because they couldn't grant it under the way it is. So we understand that. Now, with all that being said, is there anything you need to add into what we already have been discussing? Go ahead.
I just wanted to go back to the planners report. Rob, are you recommending or not recommending that we do this? Is there you have a sense of that?
My the way I'm
we never
thinking is
really
if this application is to be approved, that the conditions of approval be that these apartments be deemed affordable because we need them in our housing stock. And, we have to get our moratorium points forward, and three units is definitely a huge help to get there.
Commissioner Silber, the way we kind of ask is, have they met all the requirements? Because it's less,
Yeah.
it's more politically correct if we ask him, do they meet all the requirements, rather than him trying to sway, yeah, and what they've done now is brought themselves into compliance with the Long Hill Green Zone if approved.
Yes, if the application to rezone is approved, then they are in compliance.
Right, okay, does that make sense? We're good? Rich? Yeah, okay. If you have Rob questions now, go ahead. Yeah, we're gonna get the questions out. Go ahead.
Got it. I read Article 2, 3.2.4, 14A. Multifamily dwellings shall be limited to no more than 50% of the overall square footage. Then I went to 14B, and it said if the property is less than 1 acre, and this appears to be 0.84, then the residential use is limited to upper floors. So assuming those are correct, I just want to confirm that at some future date, this facility cannot expand more into the, as you see in the map, the abandoned bays for service, because they're on the first floor, and since they don't have 0.84 acres,
Yeah,
even though they could use up to 50% of the property, the square footage for residential uses, because they're sub 1 acre, they can never use that bottom floor for anything other than a commercial use.
right. Well,
They can't use it for residential.
right.
Correct. It's only to the second floor.
Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
Yep. Okay. You have any questions for Rob or anything right now before? Okay. All yours if there's anything you need to tie up for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that Rob covered all the bases in terms of the presentation and the facts that we were going to present. The one question I have, though, is regarding the affordable housing component. By the regulations, the affordable housing component, if it's less than 10 units, there is no requirement. Now, my client was prepared to offer one of those units as affordable. Is it the will of the commission that all three of those be affordable, or is that something that can be discussed?
That's for us.
Okay.
That's for us. I thought that it was discussed in part of the planning and preparation to get here that it was going to be all three.
My client is willing to make all three of them affordable.
That's good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So do you have any details about the plan or anything? Because I know the plan was submitted, and I know that engineering's been out there, planning and zoning's been out there, and everything is now in compliance if it was to move forward. Do you have anything else you need to add before we go to public comment?
I don't believe so, Mr. Chairman. The plans that you have before you have an accurate depiction of the floor plans. I actually went there earlier today to see it for myself. They're very nice apartments. They're well kept. There is definitely an advantage to having 3 studio apartments in the housing stock of the town of Trumbull for single people, for empty nesters, people like that. So I think it's certainly going to be a win for the town to have these 3 units on board, especially being affordable, which will help with the town's affordable housing ratio.
I appreciate that. Okay, if there's no other questions from commissioners of the applicant, right, at this time, then I'm going to open it up to the public. If there's anyone here from the public who's here to speak for or against either one, come on up to the microphone.
Oh, just one thing, Mr. Chairman, I do reserve the right to...
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So is there anybody here? Just come on up to the microphone. We need your name and address for the record.
My name is Francis Callahan, 2600 Park Avenue, Bridgeport, Connecticut.
There's a button on the bottom of the
The
mic.
button on the bottom.
The red button.
There you go.
Thank
There you go. My name is Francis Callahan. I am the property manager at Tashua Terrace. I reside at 2600 Park Avenue, Bridgeport, Connecticut. I would first like to ask about the notice. No one in Tashua Terrace, building 100 or 200, received notice whatsoever about this planning and zoning meeting. We got one letter to, here's the envelope, Tashua Terrace condominium, 100 Agnes Place. Nobody else. I've talked to 3 or 4 people. These 2 board members have talked to people. Nobody got notice, except
Where is Tasha? Is it right next to it? All right. Hold on. Do you want to opine on what the noticing requirements are for this application?
My understanding, sir, is that notice to the condo association may be sufficient.
it
For-
has never been sufficient in the past. This applicant has been here 3 or 4 times. Everybody in the complex got notice.
Okay, so
Everyone.
thank you.
You have 32 homeowners that don't know, 30 people don't know anything about this.
Okay.
Have no right to come here and talk. We happened to find out by accident.
Well, sir, you do have a letter, and there are 2 members from the board here. So if what I was going to say is that the counsel for the applicant can state on the record what notice they did provide and to who, and I believe that notice to the association may be sufficient. If they choose to provide further notice, we can do that, but that will be their decision to proceed.
Well, I think it's totally unfair, but okay. We still have other comments. There is, on one of the applications, there is a question, has there been another application on this property? And it was said no. There have been 2 or 3 applicants. There was a car wash that was turned down by this commission. There was propane tanks turned down by this commission. So the application is flawed. The zone change, basically, everybody's focusing on these 3 apartments. It basically is commercial. You open those 2 bays of this gentleman to anything, okay? And as everybody has really not talked about here, the applicant did this work without a permit, without any inspections, without anything. And a whistleblower called the town and said, do you know somebody's living up there? So this isn't like,
Right.
Someone's coming, all these things that are around there where the old Marissa's, people got the zone changed, they got a building permit, they had the plans approved, and they did it correctly. This applicant has done nothing correct. They have code violations, so they obviously hired a contractor that didn't know what he was doing. This owner has, over the last 3 to 4 years, tried to increase the usage. They obviously overpaid for it. They bought what they bought. This was, as he said, an existing residential use, Residence A, and it was a gas station. Then all of a sudden there's a convenience store. Now all of a sudden there's 3 illegal apartments. And so all of a sudden, oh, we'll just come in and ask for a zone change. I think it's just not how things should be done. And we just think this application opens this commercial zone to whatever they want to do. They could go back, could have tattoo parlors, tattoo stores, you could have anything. And this is a residential neighborhood. There's 32 units, there's condos in back, there's zone, across the street, they're trying to build houses, there are houses on Main Street. I just ask you to deny this application.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak for or against? Name and address for the record.
Linda Randall, 1114 Argonese Place. I don't really have too much to add to this. I'm speaking against it, but I think Mr. Callahan is correct that this hasn't been done in an appropriate way, that now it's here and it's ready to be voted on. I think the notification issue is an issue because we have received notification on things in the past per owner. And this is one thing that just happened to make it into the mailbox, not even with an appropriate address. And also the other issue is just the compliance. This is, as he indicated, that this has gone on. This is a little gas station that just can't stand being a little gas station, because that's really what it is with a convenience store. And they've done things over the years, and that's been documented. And here we are now. So that's really all I have to say. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak for or against the application? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, regarding the notice requirements, the regulations state clearly that for the condominium, you do not need to notice each individual unit owner. You have to notify the condominium association. That's what we did, and we do not intend to provide any further notice. Secondly, regarding the work that was done, it's been alleged that my client hired contractors and did the work. In fact, this was done by the prior owner. The prior owner had built out the apartments. They were approximately 95% complete when my clients took ownership of the property. So to say that they constructed these apartments is just not factually accurate.
They did rent them out, though.
That is true. That is true, and that was a mistake, and that's why they're here looking to rectify the mistake. My client is a gas station owner. That's his business. That's his trade. This is something a little bit new for him, and when he realized that he made a mistake, he decided, I'm going to do this the right way, and that's why we're here before you. Also want to point out that the work that was done prior with the prior owner was, again, substantially complete. What my clients did was they did some tile work on the floor because there was bare subfloor. They were concerned that the rain was going to come down and go into the convenience store. Also, as far as the staircase goes, they had access to the staircase partially because the prior owner actually blocked part of it off, which is why they built the staircase in the rear of the building. That is something they intend to rectify. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So that was both number 2 and number 3. So do commissioners have any further questions?
Through the chair. For Mr. Lebrandi, 2 questions. First of all, what 830G inspections would they be subject to? Do we still have the 5-year process?
Yeah, they'd have to meet all state requirements for the 830G requirement, for the 830G to apply for affordable. So they are deed restricted.
And Mr. Fitzgerald would approve that every 5 years?
Is it 5 years? I think so.
3 years?
Yeah, that's,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. The other question is, what are the consequences of denial? the commission denies the application, what happens?
They have to remove the, the use is not valid in the residential A zone. So they have to remove the apartments
Okay,
and just have whatever is existing on site.
thank you.
Mr. Silber or Mr. Vecchio? Okay. Tony?
Just a couple, also directed at Rob. I don't have my regulations with me, but what are the limitations on the kinds of retail uses in the Long Hill Green Zone?
I think just the standard, if you look at Long Hill Green, it's really dependent on what's existing on site. They're going to have to come in front of you guys for anything, really.
Like a tattoo parlor?
Anything, yes, yes. So they can't utilize any more of that space on site. If they come to fix up that space and make it more convenient, or they may have to come in front of us too.
It's going to be business. It's a business commercial zone, so everything that's allowed in our business commercial zones, but it's also going to be commensurate on square footage.
Office use, retail, anything really. But again, this commission is going to decide if that use meets the requirement.
They're really quite limited because they are a gas station. I think it would be cost prohibitive, one would think, to remove those tanks and convert it to something else rather than just what it is, so.
And then the other thing, forgive me, I was looking at the plans, and what's the disposition going to be of the outdoor staircase?
They have to go to Zoning Board of Appeals to get their approval for what they need to do with that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. So the issue is that the setback requirements, the staircase doesn't
Right.
meet the setback requirements. And the staircase itself wasn't built to code anyway. So that staircase has to come down, be rebuilt. The issue that we have here is, I don't want to bring anything in front of this commission before it's gone through all its steps. And that's why I was kind of like a catch-22, not really, but that they would have to go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals once the zone change has been approved, because they can't go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals until those regulations, until it switches to
Right.
that zone.
So
We can't vary the regulations if they don't adhere to
I understand the
the.
process, yeah.
It comes down to that's where they need to put the stairs, but they can't get it approved. And it doesn't belong in that zone. So ZBA today would say, no, you're not allowed to have it there. Tomorrow, if this gets approved, right, tomorrow they're going to say, okay, it's allowed there. And does that couple feet, is that something we can approve?
Right. And so is there a way to bring the stairs inside the building?
I think there is an internal staircase through the garage bays, but I think there has to be two ways of egress
It's
for
for
a
fire
residential use.
Yeah.
So they need an outside staircase.
Okay,
It
thanks.
doesn't belong to ZBA. Okay, so, I'll make my comments here instead of in closed session. I understand. I understand the public comment, and I agree with some of it. And, people make mistakes, and there's a process for mistakes being found and mistakes being corrected. Some are and some aren't. And in this particular case, the mistake was found, and the mistake has been corrected. And at the same time, when the mistake is corrected, it's had all the town agencies there and inspect them to make sure it is up to code and it's not going to be done. It's going to benefit the town if the zone change goes through with the affordable housing adding to our stock as well. But one of the things that the reality of the situation is there are residential properties right next to commercial properties and across the street from commercial properties. So it is a commercial and residential neighborhood. It is not a residential neighborhood. It is Main Street. It is a commercial district area. So we cannot classify it as a residential neighborhood and put a period. It is a commercial residential neighborhood, and that is the purpose of the Long Hill Green Zone, which is a major development 50 feet across the street, and there's a gas station to the left. So this is what that neighborhood is for. And as we discussed in the pre-app, right, we all discussed how this may be the benefit and the right thing because it's the same zone and they've operated as a commercial business for multiple decades now as well. So with that being said, I'll take a motion to close the hearing for file 2413.
Before we close it,
Go ahead.
go ahead. I just wanted Jim to add some information to the record, but go ahead.
Sorry, Karen.
Just a question for Rob. So, assuming it goes through, is the stairs the only code violation? Is there any other issues there?
As far as planning and zoning is concerned, it's the staircase. They will, if this does get approved, they will have to go through the building permit process, which includes the fire department, the building department, engineering. All permitting departments will have to go and inspect the site. We all did a walkthrough through the initial inspection with a violation, so they're all aware of it. So they've all been there. I believe we've given them all copies of the plans as well to each department. So
It's correct to say that they could not go through those town departments to get those permits because they're not allowed yet.
yes.
So they have to wait till it's allowed there to go get themselves permitted under our ordinance. But they've all done their walkthroughs and inspections already.
One observation and then a question for Rob. Obviously, as the chairman said, there are residential properties abutting commercial properties all over town. I mean, it's not a unique, it's the opposite of unique. And so the question, I mean, the other side of the Long Hill Green Zone over by Broadway is one example. So how often do we get complaints from residential property owners about the commercial use that's over across their fence? I mean, my sense is never.
Yeah, it's very rare. That's why the regulation says that you have to be 50 feet away from the residential zone in the Long Hill Green Zone. So this is pushing it even farther away. The buffering.
Right.
If this zone change happens, so there's more of a
Right.
there's even more of a
And-
buffer.
No one knows what the future brings, but to Commissioner Deacon's point, if there was any future applications, they would and could and probably include fencing, right? So, at some point. But right now, it's worked like this for multiple decades. Any more questions before we, go ahead?
Brief question. Two things. One of them for Mr. Cordone, the noticing requirement. I understand that's in dispute. Is it? We're assuming that it's valid.
There was a complaint. I don't think dispute's the right word.
Yeah, it's up to the applicant to make sure they comply with the notice requirement. And
Okay.
failure to provide adequate notice could be a defect that could be overturned in court. Some notice defects are not, do not result in a decision being overturned. It depends on the nature of the notice. These applications were noticed in the newspaper.
Okay.
That is the legal requirement for you to have jurisdiction over the applications, which you do have tonight. The mailing notices are up to the applicant to make sure they do in compliance with the state law and with the regulations.
Okay.
Now, I'll make a point of order for the comments that were made by other folks. Sometimes applicants do extra notice that they're not required to. And so if notice was given in other applications for other boards, such as the Zoning Board of Appeals, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a legally required notice. I hope
Okay.
that's helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just one other comment. If there are new apartments here, presumably there would be some waste and parking that would increase. Is that something that we've considered from staff, the increased waste, disposal, parking, things like that? Vermin management?
Well, I know there's 21 parking spaces and there's only 3 studio apartments there.
Okay.
So they have more than adequate parking to handle the site. I believe there's a dumpster on site in the back, right? So any garbage, they could go right down the staircase and throw it out there.
Okay.
I think then they just have to deal with the mail, how to get their mail, that sort of thing, address.
Thanks.
Full Severs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, good? All right. At this time, I'll take a motion to close file 2413. Ms. Delvecchio, seconded by Mr. Silver. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. I will also take a motion to close file 2414. Ms. Delvecchio, seconded by Silver. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. All right, so now we will take first, for those in the audience and those watching from home, when we have applications like this that want to change a zone and then want to ask for an application in that zone, we first have to apply the change of zone to the property, and that's what file 2413 is. So I will take a motion or approval for 2413. Mr. Silber, seconded. Ms. Delvecchio. Discussion on changing the zone to Long Hill PC zone.
my take, and I try to be very sensitive to people who are adjoining neighbors, but it's logical to make it part of the Long Hill Green Zone. It's been there, longer than many of us have been in Trumbull. The use of putting in three apartments on the second floor is better than very busy bays or a car wash. I think the 3 affordable units is a good thing. So
Okay,
I'm not sure I see an objection here.
thank you. Anything, Karen? No? Okay. Rich, anything?
I think we kind of dealt with it. My concern was, would they be able to expand the site? If they were to demo that building, build something larger. I think we went over that the oil tanks are going to make that.
Right, but that would be tomorrow's issue. Today's issue is, does it make sense that this property, which has been acting commercial for 30, 40 years, successfully, be allowed to be part of the commercial district that it's already in? That's the question before us. It's not about a future application, which we can invent any scenario we wanted, but none of them are before us.
Right. It has been residential on paper.
Right.
We've had various, right across the street, and where the cider mill is, where Mahoney's Feed, the abandoned florist, they're all so-called residential areas. It's ironic that we're banning them from having a house in a residential area because it's not a mixed-use zone. I do have serious issues with the way this came forward to P&Z, but that's for
I think
number
we all
3.
do. I think we all do. I think we all do, but at least it's gone through the proper municipal processes to correct itself.
Right.
We just don't want to keep whipping it, but it happened. They're here properly trying to correct it. So that's the best we can do with what we have in front of us. Any more questions or inputs? No? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor of approval of file 2413, say aye. Aye, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that is passed with being in compliance with the POCD with an effective date of 8/30/24. Huh? 8/30/24. Okay, so now I will take a motion for approval for file 2414, and I'll just say it now, with the stipulation that the 3 apartments are all deemed affordable. Mr. Silver makes that motion. Is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Conversation. Mr. Deacon.
We just said it before. You're going to say, Rich, you already said it. I'm going to say it again anyway. Applicants need to, we need to make it a system where it's asking for permission rather than begging for forgiveness. I understand it happened.
Right.
They're trying to make it right. I get that. It's far more egregious on the wetlands side. But in the future, let's urge this applicant to do the right thing. They're a successful operation. I'd like to help them continue to be successful, and following the zoning code is the easiest way to do that.
Right. I will say, I will not say you already said that, but what I will say is we already have that system. That system is in place. And if unfortunately there's a hiccup, there's also a system to correct it. That system worked. The corrected system worked. It was found, it's been corrected, it's in the process to continue to be corrected with some benefit for some folks. I know everybody is not going to be happy, and we try the best that we can, right? So, Ms. Delvecchio.
I think everybody covered this. What I would say is, the concerns about how it got here, but also, happy they're doing the right thing now. And it is, even though it is a resident zone, it has functioned as a commercial zone.
Right.
So it's one of those areas that's non-conforming, is conforming, is,
Right.
so I think it's a good move to approve it and have the 3 affordable units there. I think it's the ideal situation, and knowing that there are limitations of what they can do down the road without having to come back is encouraging to me.
Okay.
There's only room for those 3 apartments up top, right? There's no room for more.
No.
Right, there didn't seem to be.
that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Silver, you're all set? Okay, hearing no further comment or question, I've made all my comments already. All those in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And same comments, it complies with the POCD and comprehensive plan, effective date 8/30/24. All right, at this time, we will do the acceptance of minutes from the June 26th P and Z meeting.
Read the minutes from June 26th, found them to be in their usual order, and make a motion to approve.
Second.
I didn't read it. I wasn't here then. Tony, you ran that meeting, right? I wasn't here. In June? Or that was the month before? Yeah? All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That was the one Cousins, wasn't
That
it?
was the one before. So, is there a planner report?
No.
No? Planner report? None? None? Okay, at this time, I will take a motion to close.
So moved.
So move. Favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody.